How can distractions help you become a more focused artist? Why does speed seem like such a waste of time? Do you draw in the beginner style? And how can you avoid the most common drawing mistakes? Life drawing expert Stan Prokopenko joins me today on the Oatly Academy ArtCast. Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Oatly Academy ArtCast. I'm Chris Oatly, director of the Oatly Academy. And before we begin, I want to let you know that auditions for my next mentorship will open in just a couple of weeks. Brush to the Future is a 6-week digital painting mentorship for beginners. I call it Brush to the Future because I love the Back to the Future movies. I quote them all the time. But also because the goal of the course is to time travel. Here's what I mean. Nobody likes the newbie phase, right? When you have all these amazing ideas in your brain, but you just can't seem to get your hand to make the right marks. I created Brush to the Future to help you blast past that awkward newbie phase and arrive at that confident, comfortable future version of yourself faster than you would on your own. I will help you become a painter who feels far more comfortable and far more confident working with the pro tools and thinking with a professional perspective. So if you are new to digital painting, or you know you need to spend some time intensely focused on the fundamental skills of observation, light and shadow, color, and brush technique, and you feel like I would be a good fit to guide you through that development, please go to oatlyacademy.com/BTTF, as in Brush to the Future. Again, that's oatlyacademy.com/BTTF, and join the email notification list there, and I will follow up and get in touch about the application process. And after the show, please come see me at chrisoatly.com/Proko. That's chrisoatly.com/Proko, Proko, and join the conversation in the comments where we'll share our most productive distractions. Okay, Stan, take us all the way back. When did art emerge for you?
I don't think it ever was not there.
Right.
But I wasn't doing anything significant. I was just doodling, copying other people, copying my brother's drawings and drawing cartoons from TV. But then it really got serious when I was a teenager. So I think that's when I really became more of an artist rather than just a kid that was drawing.
Right.
So I think I was like 13. I had a friend who studied in the Russian academy, and he just came to America, and he gave me some painting lessons. And so that just kind of, from an early age, got me comfortable thinking about color and paint and creating pictures. And then when I was in high school, I started actually taking classes. Mm-hmm. And in high school, I got really interested in animation because the teacher we had at my school was like I think he previously was either a Disney animator or he taught at Disney.
So you grew up in Southern California?
Yes, in San Diego. Well, I moved to San Diego when I was in 8th grade, so middle school.
Okay, from
Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then before Chicago, I was in Ukraine, which is where I was born.
Oh, you were? I mean, I knew your family was from there. I didn't realize you were actually born in Ukraine.
Yeah, I was 6 when I came to the States.
What was the cause for your family coming to the States?
We came in 92, which is when the Soviet Union collapsed.
Uh-huh.
My dad just had a gut feeling like we got to get out of here.
Wow. And were you generally pretty, happy-go-lucky?
Yeah, I was. Uh-huh. I was like, oh, cool, we're going to a new city.
Yeah. That's interesting.
I was kind of a drama-free guy.
Really? And why do you think that was?
Probably my parents are kind of like that.
What else did you learn from your parents?
Well, I guess they always really pushed my brother and I to just be the best in whatever it is we were doing. Mm-hmm. like a B was never good enough. It's like, you got a B.
Right.
You didn't study for this? Like, I did karate for like 10 years as a kid.
Wow.
And so that gives you a lot of discipline, and yet you have to practice and practice and practice. Otherwise you're just going to get beat up.
Right. Was that your choice, karate?
I don't think so. I think I remember the day my parents, I think it was my birthday, and they're like, hey, we're going to get you into a sport for your birthday. And you can choose either basketball or karate. Oh, and I think I chose basketball. And then they're like, well, you're going to do karate. I was like, oh, okay. That's good too. So then I started karate, and I guess I kind of liked it in the beginning because it's like a new fun thing. But then it got really serious, and I was like, this is hard. But I couldn't quit because they wouldn't let me.
Right. Were you into the movie?
The Karate Kid?
Yes, of course. The movie about karate.
Yeah, of course I was.
Did you do the move? Did you do the crane move?
Yes, I did.
That's awesome.
Not in a real fight. That would never work.
Right.
But at home.
Uh-huh. And so you had brother or brothers?
Brother, 4 years older.
Okay. Is he artistic as well?
No, he's followed more of like my parents' footsteps of like science. But he actually recently changed that. He just became a lawyer.
That's amazing. And so was that present as you guys were growing up? Given your specialization, it's interesting that there's this science presence in your family too.
Yeah, I guess it influenced me in the way I approach art.
Uh-huh.
To me, it is more of a science.
Right.
That you learn and then you perfect, and then you could make it your own after that. But until you learn the science behind it, you can't really manipulate it.
How were you at karate? Now, I never did anything athletic or that required any kind of coordination whatsoever. I did do the crane move over and over, but very poorly.
Where was I in karate? Okay, so in Chicago, I did. I got up to black belt, but it was a junior black belt because I was really young when I got it. It was just like child's play. It was like a family karate type of place where it was more fun. And I got up to black belt, and then when I moved to San Diego, I had to go to a new studio, and this one was a lot more serious. Like the guy was, he was on the Japanese karate team.
Wow. For
I don't know, like 5 years or so, and they traveled, and he represented Japan.
Goodness gracious.
In international competitions. It wasn't fun. It was anything but fun. But man, I'm so glad I had that training because he just really showed us what it takes to get that good and to compete on an international level. Yeah, and then I got up to brown belt.
So brown belt's still pretty good, right?
Brown belt is pretty good and definitely a lot better than the black belt I got in Chicago.
Oh, right.
Because it's just the level of teaching was just way better. But yeah, I eventually had to choose whether I wanted to, start training for my black belt or start, really getting serious with art.
Right.
And I chose art because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed art. I did not enjoy karate.
Right.
There's not enough time to get good at all the things you want to get good at. So you have to have a balance of focus and cross training. Yeah, right. Cross training, studying something other than the thing that you're focusing on, that is a good thing because you will learn lessons from cross training that you would not learn just from drawing. Like karate for me. Right. I learned so much about discipline and improving in something that I can apply to learning art.
Yeah. My friend Zach is a martial artist, and he's very, very good. And we talk about martial arts and visual arts and the overlap there quite often. And one thing that I talk about a lot is how so many visual artists get so obsessed with speed. From very, very early on, they're going like, oh, man, I got to be faster. Oh, man, this just took way too long. It's like they're beating up on themselves because they're not very fast. And whatever that means, it's so abstract and strange. But the fact of the matter is you look at martial arts, right? And it's like, how do you learn to do anything? You learn the moves slowly and with precision. And it's through, like you were talking about, the discipline of practice that you just get fast at it. Yes. Right? Yeah. Now, I have no doubt there is probably some intention. There are times where you intentionally try and get faster, but it's not without having learned to do it precisely, right?
Yeah.
And methodically. Speed is not number one. Speed is not the first thing. And sometimes speed is just not part of the process at all. You know, sometimes you just have a slow day. Sometimes you just have a long struggle where you just gotta figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, that actually reminds me of, have you ever read The Talent Code?
Oh, no, I haven't. But I have read Talent is Overrated by Jeff Colvin. And I think there's some overlap there.
Well, so in The Talent Code, he talks a lot about myelin and this, chemical in your brain that connects your neural pathways, blah, blah, blah. You get really good at something by constantly practicing. But he talks a lot about how to practice deeply in order to create these neural pathways more efficiently. And one of the ways that he was really talking about a lot is to slow down.
Right.
So if you're trying to learn or you're trying to improve your brush stroke, you need to not speed up your brush strokes and go do a bunch of them really quickly just so you could practice more brush strokes. You need to break up the process into chunks. Mm-hmm. So you take a complicated move and you just break it up into little segments and you really study each part of that move. It's just reminding me when you're talking about slowing down is that, you got to practice deeply, not just quickly.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. So pretty good at karate. You liked art more. Now, how did that happen exactly? How did that decision come about?
Well, it was the animation teacher I had in high school, the one that worked for Disney in some way.
So you seeing that as a job, is that what crystallized it for you? Like, oh, here's something I can actually attain?
Yeah, it was something I felt like I want to just keep doing this.
Right.
Like, this is something I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
Something I want to put a lot of effort into learning and just doing all day. And I did. I did that all day. In high school, I learned Maya, and I just did 3D animation at home all the time.
Wow.
So animation was my first real love for art. I did paint with that guy in Chicago, but I was just kind of, oh, this is cool. This is fun. But then animation, I really fell in love with it. I was obsessed with it. And I started making my own 3D films. And I started doing that. And I think I was a junior or senior in high school, my art teacher, not my animation teacher, but my art teacher told me about a competition. It was called the Arts Awards, which basically all high school seniors from high school could apply to this. And then 100 artists get chosen. And then we all went to Florida for this week of training from great artists, and it was amazing. That was the thing that made me think, okay, I can actually make this work. Mm-hmm. Anybody that won the Arts Awards got nominated to be a presidential scholar, which is the president of the United States gives you this award, and he says you are one of the best artists or whatever. I don't know when it started, 20 or 30 years ago, one of the presidents created this program. And so I went through that, and then I won the Presidential Scholar Award. And we went to Washington, D.C., blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, damn, I really can do this. It just kept leading to more and more things. Because at that event, I guess it was the president of American Airlines was there. This competition is sponsored by all these rich people that want to donate to art, and so they donate to the government art competition, So all these people are there, and the president of American Airlines was there, and he liked my cartoon, and so he put my animation on American Airlines flights for 2 months, before the movie started,
Wow.
On the airplane, it was on there, and that was pretty awesome. And then that led me to meeting some other people, and yeah. Then I got really serious.
Did you meet the president?
No.
Oh, no.
So
that's sad.
Bush was the president at the time. And he was the first president to not show up for the Presidential Scholar Awards.
Oh.
He sent Barbara, and we got to meet her.
Well, that's cool.
Oh, we got to meet his dog as well. He was running through. That's the best part of going to the White House was I got to see the dog that they have. And the dog had his own bodyguard.
Oh, my God.
And the dog hated the bodyguard. And so the dog would just, all day, he would just be running away from the bodyguard. And so the bodyguard would just, all day, would be chasing this dog around the White House.
That's amazing. You won the thing. You met Barbara Bush. You did this animation, and it ended up not being a detour, but rather an end in and of itself. And that's very cool.
Yeah, it taught me a lot about storytelling, about motion. And so when I started drawing, I mean, there were so many things that overlap. It's still a visual art form, so it wasn't like a complete waste of time, even with just technical abilities.
Oh, yeah.
So much overlap there. But it also it kind of came right back around. Like when now I'm doing these educational videos about how to draw and I'm using animation in it. So it's like you study the stuff and you might not think you'll ever use it, but the best artists in any medium, not just drawing, the best artists use information in new ways. They connect things that nobody else has connected before. And so I think it's so cool that I got this opportunity to learn painting when I was a teenager, and then animation when I was in high school, and then I got into Watts Atelier and I went back to really fine-tuning my drawing and fine art. And then coming back and teaching and putting it all together, it's just so cool that I've got these skills to be able to combine them and create educational videos that really weren't created before. Like a lot of the tutorials on YouTube were kind of the same thing, where people, turn on the camera and they were good. It was not necessarily different. And so when I created my first YouTube video, the reason it kind of blew up immediately was because it was not because it was good, because others were good too, but it was because it was two things combined in a way that people weren't used to seeing. It was like a surprise, like, oh, whoa, that's cool.
What was the first video?
It was how to draw the head from any angle.
Oh, yeah.
And so basically, I didn't teach anything new. It was just the Loomis method. It's just draw the ball, cut the sides off, attach the jaw, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing that Loomis teaches. I mean, it is. It's the thing that Loomis teaches. But the fact that I animated the lines over my head,
yeah,
as I moved, you could see the Loomis ball animated on top of me. That's what really set it apart. And that's just because of cross-training. It's because I had experience with animation and drawing. And I combined the two and okay, look at that. Something new. So, going back to the cross-training thing is like learn as much as you can. Anything you're interested in it, just go learn it. And then figure out how you could combine that with your focus to create things that other people are not creating.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you had animation in high school. That's insane. Did you have any kind of animation paradigm before that class? Or was that really what made you think animation is a career? It's a real thing. People are paid to do that.
Not animation, but I was into filmmaking. Like my cousin and I, we were really into shooting, home videos as a family. But then once I got older, I started creating like my own movies, and they were really stupid. I mean, this is nothing to brag about.
Well, wait, what were some of the ideas though, just to give us an idea of what they were?
We would recreate a lot of other movies. So we really liked The Mask.
Oh no,
with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, and
so we would just like play the movie in the background and then reenact it. Like we would just lip sync to it and we would act it out.
Oh, that's great.
And then we actually remade the entire Home Alone movie.
Oh, God.
We refilmed it as us playing every character in the movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then we edited it with VHS tapes.
Right.
Because back then we didn't have like Premiere or Final Cut or anything.
Right.
You basically connect the camera to the TV, play the tape, and record it onto the VHS, and then stop the recording or pause the recording, go to the next take, the successful take, press play and record at the same time, and then you'd clip all these things together, and we did that, and we recreated the entire Home Alone movie. I would never show that tape to anybody.
Oh, you have to.
I will not.
Listeners, please pelt Stan with emails. We have got to get those tapes released to the public. Did you play the Macaulay Culkin part?
We switched off. We were very inconsistent. It was a horrible movie.
You mean you? He's so different. It's like that Bob Dylan movie where like 12 different actors play Bob Dylan.
I haven't seen that, but yeah, it probably was.
Where did your obsession with the figure, where did that actually begin?
At Watts Atelier. And I actually started taking classes at Watts Atelier while I was in high school still.
But did you have any kind of context of that? Like
I did not do figure drawing before.
Okay, and you had no sort of knowledge, but surely you were given a Loomis book or Bridgman or something. Oh no, not at all. Oh, that's interesting. Did you try regular college at any point?
No, not college. I didn't.
So that's amazing. So your parents, the high standards that your parents had for you, just continued to pay off.
Yeah, you just keep pushing to get good at what you're doing.
Just clarify what an atelier is.
Okay. Well, I think it's a French word for school. Mm-hmm. But the difference is that it's more of an apprenticeship. It's not like a typical college where you kind of go through a program of like, okay, you pass a class and then you go to the next one. And it's like you have a different teacher every time. This is more of you have the same teacher the whole time for like 10 years. It's the same it's the same group of teachers, really. And you just choose your own path. They have fundamental classes, which you should probably take first, but you don't have to. You can just come in and just start oil painting.
Right.
Even before you start drawing, they'll be like, well, you should probably learn about values before you start painting in color. But you can take the fundamental classes many times as you want. And for example, like in college, you take every class once. In an atelier, you repeat the same class like 15 times. It's like we had a figure drawing class. So you would take a figure drawing class like every semester, just because you need to draw the figure forever. Like you just don't stop. You just don't. It's not a class you pass.
Right.
It's a skill that you continue to polish and get better and better. You can't learn how to draw the figure in one semester. Oh, and another thing that's really great about an atelier is that the student level is mixed. And so you take a figure drawing class and there'll be someone who is there for the first time and someone who's there and they've been there for 5 years. And they're all together. And so the newer ones could kind of look over the shoulder and see what everyone else is doing. And then the more advanced ones can help the beginner ones. And I think that's great. Mixing the levels is a really good thing.
And there's also kind of a revolving door element to it as well, where there's people that will come in and just stay for a very short time, and then other people that will stay for a very long time as well.
Yes. Yeah, there's always new students. Like every semester, it's like, oh, there's new people. And they would stay for like one semester and then they wouldn't show up anymore. Because, it's like there's also levels of seriousness in these, because it is kind of like you do whatever you want. You don't have to pay $30,000 for an entire semester or for an entire year for all these classes. Like some people would come in and they take one class because they thought art is fun. And then they'd be like, oh, it's actually hard. And they'd go away. But the serious ones would stick around, and those are the ones you really made friends with, and the community would be with those people.
Yeah, helps you to kind of understand yourself too, I think.
Yeah.
And you see people come and go, and you start to understand that some people just don't take it as seriously, and that's okay. Yeah. Like that's okay. But what it does is it starts to make you realize, like, oh, I don't think I'm giving up. Like you just realize, like, oh, so that's me then. I'm the guy that's still here.
Yeah. I initially took a lot of quick sketch classes because at the time I was very into animation. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do gesture because I like animation. Mm-hmm. And I went to that school because I still wanted to do animation. Like I wanted to get good at drawing so I could animate.
Right.
So I took a lot of gesture classes, and I took them every semester for like a year or two. And then I would also take some figure and portrait courses. But then after a while, it switched to me taking a lot more figure and portrait classes. Mm-hmm. As you progress, you just kind of slowly shift focus onto the next thing.
Your focus shifted then?
Well, eventually I just fell in love with oil paint again. Since when I was in Chicago, I had that, that like a few months of that private teacher. Since then, I didn't paint at all. Or maybe like I dabbled in it a little bit, but barely. I did barely any painting up until like a few years into Watts Atelier. And I just fell in love with it. And then I started just focusing on painting. Portraits, landscapes, still lifes. It didn't really matter. I just loved paint. Mm-hmm. There's something to it, mushing it around and the color.
Yeah.
And then I just started trying to become a fine art painter and kind of building up my portfolio, getting into galleries. I did a lot of commissions, portrait commissions for people.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
I heard somebody mention that the other day, and I just feel like I don't hear much about portrait commissions, and yet they have to be happening all the time.
Oh, weird.
People want portraits.
Yeah. But commissions were something that was actually pretty common at Watts Atelier. You just kind of start getting these random jobs. You learn to sell yourself. You learn to deal with clients, and you learn how to paint, and satisfy the client's needs. You don't get paid much, but you learn how to work professionally before you're even ready for it. Because, my commissions they started off pretty bad. There's not something I'd put in my portfolio.
Right.
Because I was still a student back then. I'm always a student, but I was like only a student.
Right. There had to have been these points for you where you felt like you were growing from student mode into, obviously we're lifetime learners. We stay students forever, but you know what I mean? Like you're evolving and you're becoming more of a professional.
Yeah. I guess for me, it happened when I started teaching at Watts.
Okay.
Like 5 years in. And then I would get a lot better from teaching because I think teaching is like the best way to learn.
Oh, yeah.
There's
nothing like it.
You're forced to learn the subject inside out before you teach the class because you got to be prepared for the questions that are going to come. I wanted to talk a little bit about being like self-taught. Some people have a thing about that academic style. People would say, all the people from Watts or wherever, they all looks the same, right? They all look like it's the same artist that did this thing because it just looks like reality, right? There's no style to it. And so some people might avoid that and try to be self-taught. Or some people might not have access, or they just don't want to be part of a school, and they say they're self-taught, and it's like a good thing,
right?
And that always kind of bothered me. I have a thing about people saying they're self-taught and like being proud about it. I don't know. Do you? Am I pushing any buttons here?
No, I don't. Well, I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are pushing buttons.
Probably from some listeners, yeah.
Yeah, but no, I hear what you're saying. I think that I just feel like we're always looking for excuses to lie to ourselves. We just always want some way, and I'm self-taught as a just naked truth. That is sometimes for people a way to like preempt. It's like a preemptive attack. It's like a defensiveness. Like I'm secretly uncomfortable with my ability.
Yeah, they're hedging against like, if there's anything wrong, it's because I didn't study with
or because I want it that way. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like I want it to be like that.
All my mistakes are on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I remember distinctly being in a critique when I was in art school, and there was this illustration this fellow student had done, and it was actually in C.F. Payne, the now legendary illustrator, C.F. Payne. It was in his class, and C.F. was critiquing the work, and there was a character with the robe on. I don't remember the illustration exactly, but I know there was a character with the robe on, and the folds just looked soupy, right? They just looked like kind of curvy, wispy lines, and it just did not at all represent cloth at all. I mean, it didn't even look like stylized cloth. It just looked, it was just poorly drawn, And then also the rest of the illustration was rendered in a slightly more competent way. So there, it was very clear that the folds were, even by the standards represented within the borders of the image, the folds were lesser. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry, CF, if I'm misquoting you, but I believe he said, it looks like a pile of spaghetti. I believe that's what he said. And I don't even think he was being a butthead about it. He was just saying, like, it's not representing the reality that you're trying to represent. And then the student said, that's my style. I wanted it to be that way. I didn't think he was telling the truth then, and I don't think he was telling the truth now. But I think that's the realm we're kind of getting in. And the fact is, we all do this. We all do this to ourselves. It's just that we're trying to avoid it, most of us.
Yeah.
But the truth is that human beings in general lock into this thing where we start telling ourselves a story that feels comfortable enough to help us avoid growth, and avoid change. And I think that's really what's going on there. Nobody's really self-taught. Nobody's 100% self-taught. You don't actually learn in a vacuum, even if you've learned from books, right?
Right. You're taught by the people that wrote the books.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
They're still communicating the stuff.
Right.
So yeah, even when somebody says they're self-taught, I know that technically that term means like you didn't go to a school.
Yeah.
But I still hate the fact that they use it to get credit for it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I learned it on my own.
Like I'm better than people who went to as if to go to a school is a weak choice. Yeah. Wow. That's right.
Yeah. It's like you don't deserve credit for you read the book. You got the information from text rather than from speech. From somebody telling it to you in person. You're not, you're not self-taught. You're taught by the many masters that have come before us.
Right. Evaluations are a strange thing. And I find that so much of art and so much of art education is like a game where no one actually makes the rules clear. And so what it ends up being is so much. It's like that scene at the beginning of Toy Story where, he's like, I brought my force field dog. And then he's like, oh, yeah, well, I brought my dinosaur that eats force field dogs. That's why an academic approach to art is useful, is because all of the weird, abstract, extra rules can just go away. And you can just not play the force field dog game, and instead you can just focus on learning a craft, and within those restrictions you will discover the spiritual side of it. You will discover the things that are in you that really need to get out, but we're cutting out a lot of the BS in the process.
Wow.
And probably growing faster, I think.
Yeah. Wow, that was nice. That was a good analogy.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, I guess my point is that anytime we break out of a system, right, for teaching art, we risk it turning into this just abstract Alice in Wonderland like world where there are no rules and up is down and big is small and nothing makes sense. And so academia and an academic approach to art is there to eliminate variables. Right? Here we are at science again, right? It's to focus, to have, a controlled environment so that we're aware of what's changing and we can go, oh, that's changing. And that is supposed to change. That's the part you're trying to change right now. And we're keeping everything else the same so that we can, well, and like you were saying earlier, so we can break down the process into this specific part.
Yeah.
So if you're, for example, drawing a portrait, the drawing either does or doesn't look like that person. If all of a sudden the artist just decides that, well, I didn't want it to look like that person. Well, fine. But now we don't know if you're doing a good job and we can't track your growth. We don't know if you're improving.
Right.
Because now you just kind of, or I wanted my folds to look like soup or whatever, and that's force field dogs, right? It's just like we can't have a conversation about it now. And that's why the conversation around composition is so crazy. And that's why so many schools get away with, oh, just keep playing with the shapes, or, oh, just, it's like we show up at a school and it's like the teacher's just there to kind of be awesome and we don't actually get better. And the best we can do is just copy them.
Right.
And then our work just looks just like them. So anyway, I guess so the point of a controlled academic environment is not to make you look just like somebody else. It's actually the complete opposite.
Yeah.
It's to allow you to be able to isolate specific parts of your artistic growth so that then you can be unleashed and affect any kind of image you want to.
Yeah, you can control what you know, but you can't control what you don't know.
Right.
So if you know a lot about anatomy and color and composition and perspective, you can now create any world you want.
Right.
Because you have full control over it. If you want to break, all the rules about color in order to achieve a certain effect, you could do that a lot better if you understand color than if you just randomly try to make weird colors.
Right.
You going back to that self-taught thing, it's like when you don't know how to manipulate this stuff, you don't necessarily have your own unique style. It's not like learning academia is going to make you like everybody else. It's actually, like you said, it's the opposite because, from my experience, the students that are either beginners or self-taught, they're making the same mistakes. There's only so many mistakes you can make about rendering value, tone. Yeah. And you make the same mistakes. We all do it unless we know how to do it otherwise. And so it's like when you don't learn that stuff, your style is beginner style. Like that is a style, I think, because Like, I mean, I critique a lot of stuff. Like, people send me stuff every day. And so I get to see a lot of student work. And it's amazing how similar everybody's stuff is initially. Like, every beginner is like, it looks identical because without proper perspective, your stuff looks like the other guy that didn't converge his lines.
Yeah.
And if you don't separate your light and your dark side, your stuff is going to look spotty, just like the other guy that didn't separate light and dark.
Yeah.
And so your style is basically beginner style. So if anybody's afraid of like learning academia because they want their own unique style, yeah.
You'll be far more unique when you have control over every element. What's the most common mistake you notice in life drawings?
Being afraid of shadows. And this is more specifically for portrait drawing, where people are like afraid to make the skin like dark. And it's not a race thing. It's not, it has anything to do with like dark
not skin
light
color.
Skin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
It's more of like, let's just say you're drawing a Caucasian person. And it's like, well, the local color, the local value of this person's not dark, he's light. And so people are afraid of adding shadows because they think it's going to be the wrong color or the wrong value. And so everything becomes like the same light value and it just becomes a cartoon. And so people start drawing outlines in order to indicate form instead of tone. So people are really afraid of shadows. That's very common. Another, obviously, drawing symbols rather than what you actually see. So going back to portraits, like for an eye, people will draw like that almond shape with a circle inside, and that's not what an eye looks like. The eyelid is three-dimensional and there's certain planes, and depending on what angle you're looking at it from, that curve will be slightly different. So you have to observe the actual curve you're seeing, not just put like a fish, goldfish shape. With lips, they just outline that typical curve for the lips with the separation between W for a nose. So just drawing symbols. These are things that we have in our mind of what things are, like cartoon versions of things. And they draw that instead of truly observing your subject and drawing that.
Right.
So that's a typical beginner thing that everybody has to get past, is just learning how to see as an artist. Let's see. Obviously, proportions, just learning to developing your eyes to see proportions correctly. A lot of people skip to shading way too early.
Yeah.
People try to cover up their drawing issues with tone. And I mean like linear drawing issues. Like maybe the proportions are off or the gesture is stiff or the structure isn't there. And they're like, all right, I'm gonna start shading and cover us all up and make it technique-y. And I did that all the time. That was like my go-to. Was like shading it and trying to make it look 3D when there was just so many fundamental issues with it. And so I think people focus way too much on shading before they learn all the stuff that has to come before you shade. So that's a big mistake. Choosing incorrect reference, or not incorrect, but just bad reference to draw from. That's huge. Like people draw from like something with a flash photo. Not necessarily good for art. It might look okay. I mean, I actually kind of hate photos with a flash, but because it's just like all the highlights are right in the middle. There's like no shadows. But they're really bad for learning to draw, especially for like a beginner. You can't see tone very well with a flash photo because the shadows are all gone. And so you have to draw the really subtle halftones. And for a beginner, that's really difficult to see, those subtle halftones. So I recommend starting with photos that have more dramatic lighting. And then once you develop your eye to see subtle value changes, then go into more natural lighting scenarios where the light is very soft, because that's really hard to see plane changes with soft lighting.
Well, truth be told, you have to bring so much of your existing knowledge of the structure of the face or the body in that case. You have to sort of blend the line drawing you see in your mind with the sort of the patches of color that you're looking at in real life.
Yeah.
And sort of invent a bit of lighting that way anyway.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it sometimes you can't see it. I mean, especially if you're drawing from a photo, so much of the information will be lost and you have to add back into it. If you're drawing from a model, it's a little easier to see all that stuff.
Right. That's interesting because like warm and cool distinction, for example,
Yeah,
might remain more visible in sort of a lot of where there's a lot of fill light. You might still be able to get a warm cool distinction that then you can translate into value.
definitely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And then also just the fact that we see with two eyes, you might see form you see that form a little better, that when you flatten it, you can't see that well.
That's such a good point. Get us to you launching your YouTube videos.
I was teaching at Watts at the same time, and then I had this YouTube channel that I put a lot of time into.
And was it just making the videos that was taking a lot of time? What was...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was making video. It was the technical stuff. Because at the time, I was doing everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I was obviously writing the scripts. I was filming, turning on the camera. I was editing. I was doing the animation. Basically everything. Like, there was no step in the process that was somebody else. It was just completely me, and I was making these like I like to think of them as mini films. Eventually, I started hiring people, but at the time it was just taking so long. I was spending so much time on it.
You've got a crew now.
Yeah, so it's been growing, and I cannot keep up on my own. I can't do all this stuff because we've been adding 3D animation in there, and it's just like, there's no way I could make a video every week or two by myself. We literally put in like 200 hours of man time into each video. Maybe even more. It's ridiculous. There's 14 or 15 of us now working on each video. Yeah, there's a lot. There's so much that goes into it. It's crazy. People don't know all the behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, we've been growing the team, pretty much helping with every step of the tutorials, making the videos. And I could focus more on the teaching aspect of it rather than all the technical stuff.
Yeah, that's a game changer. It's a game changer having a team that helps to make the thing and just helps you to focus on doing what got you here in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. And it allows me to sleep.
Yeah, which is wonderful.
I was pulling all-nighters at least once a week.
Yep.
Back in the day.
Oh, yeah, just up until just recently, I was the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can have another talk about boundaries at a different time. How do you get hooked on figure drawing?
Well, I think people just need to see more figure drawing. There's no other way. We just need to make more tutorials on drawing the figure instead of things that are going to get a lot of views on YouTube. I see a lot of stuff where people are drawing subjects that they know people are going to click on just because they want to get more views.
Yeah.
And they say how to draw Spider-Man.
Right.
But it doesn't really teach anything about drawing Spider-Man.
Right.
It's just a video on someone drawing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And that's what people are clicking on. But we just need to, as teachers, as these more academic teachers get onto the internet more, I think the YouTube and all these other websites are going to be more populated with traditional classical training.
God, I hope so.
Which will be good, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I hope so.
Right now, it's more a lot of fan art that's getting all the attention, all the hits on YouTube. But I think quality naturally just kind of rises to the top. So when the next generation of artists get really good, the ones that will get good are the ones that watch the right stuff,
Yeah, right.
The right tutorials. And then they will recommend that stuff to the next generation. And then naturally, like, those videos will just get more and more popular.
You can connect with Stan Prokopenko at proko.com. That's proko.com. And please come see me at chrisoatley.com/proko. In the comments section, could you please share with me, as well as the other ArtCast listeners, what are your most productive distractions? Stan shared how vital cross-training can be for artists, blending ideas and techniques from other fields of study to help you become a more unique and focused artist. So what is one non-art practice that has made you a better artist or storyteller? Please come tell me about it in the comments at chrisoatley.com/proko. And once again, if you're looking for someone to help you blast past that awkward newbie phase, if you were listening to Stan talk about the beginner style or those common fundamental mistakes, and you're thinking, oh, that's me, and you would like to develop those fundamental skills through digital painting, please go to oatleyacademy.com. That's OATLEY academy.com/BTTF. That's for Brush to the Future, BTTF. And join the email notification list there, and I will follow up with some information about how you can apply for the mentorship. And it would be great to work together and just really, help you accelerate your artistic growth, particularly your fundamental digital painting skills this February. So again, chrisoatley.com/Proko to join the comments, and oatleyacademy.com/BTTF to join the notification list. Thank you, my friends, for subscribing to the show, for commenting, and for sharing the episodes on social media. Until next time, stay strong and stay close. Who was this teacher? Is it anyone we would know?
Nataha Lightfoot. I don't know if you know him or not. He's retired now.
He has the greatest name ever.
Nataha Lightfoot, I know. I think he actually changed his name. I think he made that up. But
oh, really?
Again, I don't know. I'm making stuff up right now. I feel like maybe that was like the students were saying, and then I just took it as a fact. I don't know.
That is amazing. So if we Google Nataha Lightfoot,
I just looked up Nataha Lightfoot, and he has a company. It's in Ramona. It's an animation tool works or something like that. I don't know.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's a little promo for Nataha Lightfoot.
You need to write that guy.
Yeah.
Just be like, hey, I made it.
Yeah.
I was on Chris Oatley's ArtCast, and I have you to thank.
Yeah, I finally did it.
Nowhere to go but down from here.
I'm retiring now.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna hang out with Nataha Lightfoot.
That actually sounds legitimately tempting. How early in your Watts education did you start doing commissions?
I think I might have even done a commission before I went to Watts. It was like a portrait drawing from a photo of one of my parents' friends' kid. I think it was it was a baby kid. Yeah,
a baby kid.
Baby kid. A young kid. Baby kid. You can tell I don't have kids, right?
I was just about to ask. Do you?
That's how I refer to young. He was a baby kid. I have no idea how old this kid was.
It's like when you're like awkwardly trying to make conversation with someone, you're like, so do you have any baby kids?
Do you have any baby kids?
Do you mean do I have a baby or do I have kids? No.
Yeah, somewhere in between. Like 3 years old. What is that?
Or like you can't remember if your friend has kids or not. Yeah. So how's the baby kid?
Yeah.
Multiple uses for that term. I like it. So you're doing commissions, portraits of baby kids.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. So, okay, hang on.
The reason it picked up also was because, when you're a teacher, you just get more commission, people interested in you painting because, then I had students commissioning me. There were people that they were like casual students.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I wish the world had more of those.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
And those people were actually really fun to teach. They were either retiring or maybe they're moms that their kids are getting older and they have a little more time for themselves finally.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. And so like, I'm going to take an art class because I love to paint.
Yeah.
And I loved to paint when I was younger and now I'm going to do it. So that, they take paint classes and then they would see I'm this young teacher and they're like, I want to support this guy. I'm going to commission him.
The baby kid.
The baby kid. Yeah.